Hi, I'm Dr. Randall Ullman. I'm a counselor. I've been a counselor. It's called an LCPC. I've been a counselor for 35 years. First five out of my office when I was working in my own company, but for the last 30 years uh, in a counseling office owned by my wife and myself called Ullman and Ullman Counseling. It is so nice to be with you. I'm starting out a new set of videos, and these videos are about a book that I have written. And the book's name, and I'll show it to you, it's called Rebuilding the Wounded Heart, God's Plan for the Restoration of the Soul. And he called me to write that about 20 years ago, and it represents all the years that I was working in the area of counseling. And in all of those years, he taught me very much about how to deliver people from demonic spirits. He taught me much about spiritual warfare, and I have used it consistently. I'm kind of a I'm kind of a secret weapon because I've just been quietly in my office for all these years, and God has just sent me people over and over and over. I've never had to advertise. And these people have many interesting um, ways that they have lived their lives, from just small children who their parents pray for them, to people that are just normal, everyday people that have everyday jobs, have families, just the normal family. But then we also have many family situations where there is uh, a lot of negativity and anger and rage, and that must be dealt with too. And many times that is demonic in nature. It's been an enjoyable 30 years. I am 70, almost 76 years old, and I still have not retired, and I'm not planning on it anytime soon. I would say the only way that I would not continue to do this work is if my mind went, and so far it hasn't, and I have God to thank for that. I'm a very active person. Um, Play golf twice a week for most of the year. We have some pretty cold weather here in the north, so not in the winter, but I'm a Cubs fan. I'm a Cubs season ticket holder. I was a softball player for until I was 65, so about 11 years ago. Um, I played tennis and basketball in college at Trinity College in Deerfield, Illinois. Very, very small Christian school. There's about 1,200 students. I was a mediocre basketball player, and I was the number one tennis player. But I've been involved in sports all my life. I love sports. But what I've learned over my lifetime is I love something more than sports. I love my God. I love the Trinity. I love God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. And I can't live my life without them. We have our whole lives to get it right with God. And I believe that I'm getting it right with God as I'm getting closer to being with Him, which seems to happen with a lot of people as they get older. They realize that, hey, this life is short and there may not be many years left. So, what God is telling me is that He wants me to start telling everything He's taught me. So, I've written one book on how I do this counseling. That was the book I just showed you. I wrote a book about my life, but that was more for me. I don't know that I'll ever publish that. The first book was a simpler form of the system I use. The second book or the third book I'm writing is on the deeper meanings and how you get into helping people get out of the occult totally. And it's very possible, and I've been doing it in a quiet way without advertising because I really want I don't mind people knowing what I'm doing, but it's just as well to keep things quiet. There's a lot of corruption and sin in this world, and it causes so much problems from childhood all the way up through the time of and just before death, and even in death. And so I'm always going to have a job, it seems. And it seems like the more corrupt this world gets, the more busy I get, and the more difficult the deliverance situations become. So, as I'm talking to you, I'm talking to you as a man of passion, a man that who believes in people, who cares about people, who wants to do the very best to systematically remove the demonic spirits that hold them back from being all they can be. And that's why I am starting these podcasts, because they are going to explain the very method I use, and that method is explained very well in that first book I wrote. Now, God is not just leaving me there. I have a family that I enjoy being with. I have a wife of almost 54 years come August of 2021. She is a fantastic woman. I don't know what I would have done without her. She's a very consistent woman. She's very pragmatic, extremely practical. She meets every need that I have, that I need to have. And she's a good mother. And we have 3 kids with 2 of them are sons, one's a daughter, and their spouses. And we have 7 grandchildren. And that keeps us busy when I'm not working. I like to work in the yard. I mean, there's just so many things I'm doing. You only have so many times in the week. And the way I look at it is you might as well be busy and be active instead of sedentary and sitting around watching TV. And I even have time to do that occasionally. So as I'm talking to you, I'm saying I'm a I'm a normal person who has a lot of likes. Obviously, I have a few dislikes, but most of all, I live my life for my family and for my clients. And as long as God gives me the ability, I'm going to continue to work as hard as I can and try to get some rest in between, but try to work as hard as I can to help as many people as possible. Now, in the book, I say in the very first part of the book that unless you are a Christian, you cannot really do deliverance because Satan cannot remove Satan from himself. So if you're a Christian, the only way you can remove a demon is if you're a Christian already. Non-Christians, you might as well not even read the book. You might as well not even try to figure out the system. And there may not be many of you that are even listening. But if there are those of you who are not Christians and want to be free, what we're talking about in the next session is the Human Freedom Project. We're starting that. There's several of us that are behind this, and I'm the face of it. And the Human Freedom Project is basically saying all of us are humans, all of us need to be free, and life is a project from the beginning to the end. And as it is a project from the beginning to the end, the process that is listed and shown in this book will help you to move in that process from accepting Christ to being sanctified, becoming more mature, and in the process getting demons removed from you so you can be mature. And that's what sanctification means. Ultimately, we will be glorified, and glorified is when we get to heaven and everything is pure, everything is truthful, everything is love. But until we get to that point, We need help. We're all sinners. We all need to be saved by the grace of God. And any of you out there that are looking at this and watching this visual that don't know who God is, I can tell you this much. He loves you. He'll love you even if you don't accept him, because he created you. He created every single person in this world. He loves every single person in this world. He cares for every single person in this world. And many, many people blame him for things he never did. But he's easy to blame because no one's ever seen God. God is spirit, and we worship him in spirit and in truth, and it takes faith to do that. So when you look at a verse in the Bible, it says John 3:16, for God so loved the world, which is what I just said. He forgave us, and he gave us his only begotten Son, that whosoever shall believe in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. Everlasting life is eternal life with purity and love and perfection. This earth will never give you that perfection. And if you say that you're perfect, you're probably lying, because there isn't anybody that's perfect. Some people seem to act like it's some narcissists and selfish people. But the truth is, we're all sinners. I don't care if you're a Christian or you're not. And we all have curses and strongholds on us that need to be delivered. And when I say all, I mean Christians as well. And I have found in my own life that I had many strongholds and curses on me. And I was a deacon in the church. I was a Sunday school teacher. I played on the church softball team. I served communion. I was on several church boards. And yet, I still had a lot of strongholds and curses on me. And so I know personally that what I am speaking about is accurate. I was a good person. I read my Bible all the time. I prayed to God. But I still had strongholds, and I always felt that there was something holding me back. And that's what deliverance does. It frees you up so that you can be all that you can be. You can be the best that you can be, and yet you're still imperfect. So I'm not promising the world, I'm promising heaven. The world is a system. Heaven is a place. And the world will drag you down. It's the world, the flesh, and the devil. And so those of you who need to be saved, and saved is saving your soul. Your soul is your mind, your will, and your emotions. Your spirit is where you connect with God. And there's all kinds of religions out there that you can connect with a God, but it's not the God. There is only one creator, and that creator is God the Father through Jesus Christ, his Son, and through the Holy Spirit. All three of them work together, called the Trinity, and that is who I have accepted. It took faith to believe that he was the one and only God. I read the scriptures. I actually I accepted Christ as a child, but I rededicated myself in the 20s when I was really involved in sports. And I used to go to the Cubs games all the time, the Bulls games, the Blackhawks. I wasn't a White Sox fan. Don't hold that against me. But in the Bears. And I would go with my brother because he was living in Deerfield at the time I was teaching school in there. And one Saturday I got home and there was a note from my wife. And it said, I've gone home to my mother because I can't keep living like this. She was lonesome. She was isolated. And I was immature. and I was treating her very poorly. I dug into my Bible that day. I started praying, and I said, God, I need you. I need you very much. I have totally ignored you. And I promise if you bring her back, I will stay close to you. Well, it was interesting. She came back a couple hours later and she said to me, I got halfway home and I said, who would be easier to live with, you or my mother? And she came home to me. So that says something right there. Her mother wasn't a bad person, but she was not easy to live with. But from that day forward, I started to grow in my relationship with God. And just accepting Christ is not enough. There's so many people in the church that just accept Christ and that's it. They got a ticket to heaven and that's the way it is. They don't really live for God. Well, it took me a lot of years to live for God. I taught school for 4 years. Then I couldn't really make a living at it. I was making $6,500 a year back in 1972. I went to work for my uncle, and what happened there is for 4 years, I stocked shelves. I had a college degree. I stocked shelves. I drove a truck, but I learned. It was a small business, $100,000 a year. Back in '72, that's probably $400,000 or $500,000 a year. Just a one-man show and me. But he passed away 4 years later, and I was able, with the help of a loan from my aunt, to buy the company. And for 8 years in a row, I sold $1 million a year with just one truck driver. I was very efficient. I learned to be efficient, but I was also very much into myself and how wonderful I was. How great. The pride was overwhelming. And then God, in the early 80s, I had bought another business up in Milwaukee that was selling about the same amount. And then we hit a really bad downturn, and I wasn't ready for it. I was so cocky, and he humbled me. And what happened out of all that, to make a long story short, is all of a sudden I wasn't doing so well. And I'd always wanted, as a teacher, I'd always wanted to be a counselor. So I went back to school at Northern Illinois. I had started when I was teaching school in '72. And my wife and I both went. And to make a long story short here, we got our master's degrees at Northern Illinois University. And we both got our doctorates from Oxford Graduate School. And so, to make a long story short, because I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, it's been a long process of learning how to do what God wanted me to do and what's in the book. And what God is doing now is he's going to start a process where we're going to have a 401c3 corporation, small corporation, called the Human Freedom Project. And that Human Freedom Project, which I mentioned earlier, is going to include teaching how to do what I do, perhaps some seminars. I really don't know where it's going to go. God just told me to do it, and I'm just answering his call. So what I would say to you is, yes, I've got a long story, and I don't want to go into all the details, but all I know is that to do the work that I have for you, or that God has for you, you have to be a Christian. Therefore, I suggest very strongly, if you are not, that you seek him, because when you seek God, you will truly find him. And so, as I leave this first podcast, or this first video, I should call it, I want to encourage you to seek God, seek a pastor, seek a friend that you know is a Christian. Have them help you to become a Christian. If you are watching these videos and you feel like this is something that you want to do or you want to learn more about it, then you can, and we will give you some information. as the time goes by. But for now, I'm closing. Um, it's it's great to have a chance to talk to you, and I say goodbye and God bless you.